Happy Thursday. It's good to see you. How does power live in your life? How does it show up in the regular routines of your life? I thought about that a lot last 24 hours since we talked. And it's interesting to note that power to be an agent of joy and peace and serenity and equanimity comes from me most when I am obedient to my pattern of reading Scripture and to my pattern of prayer and my pattern of exercise. And so it's funny, the irony, the paradox really is humility and obedience to something other than your own thoughts, desires, wills, and passions creates freedom. That's what Jesus teaches us. That's the gift that God gives us. Let's read on, chapter 18, starting at verse 8. Chapter 19, starting at verse 8. Now, when Pilate heard this, he was more afraid than ever. What did he hear? Remember, you heard that Jesus was the Son of God. Now, when Pilate heard this, he was more afraid than ever. He entered his headquarters again and asked Jesus, "Where are you from?" But Jesus gave him no answer. Pilate therefore said to him, "Do you refuse to speak to me? Do you not know that I have the power to release you and have the power to crucify you?" And Jesus answered him, "You would have no power over me unless it had been given to you from above. Therefore the one who handed me over to you is guilty of the greater sin." And so the one who handed Jesus over, the Sadducees, the heads of the temple, the ruling elite and power community in Jerusalem, they were honoring the power that Pilate had based on the reality of the infrastructure created by the Roman government. And they didn't own their own power in relationship with God. They didn't honor Pilate's power in relationship to God to release Jesus. They knew he was bound to an idol of Roman hierarchy and governance. And because they did that, they played upon that in a way that got them what they wanted. Power comes from God. Whatever power you have came from God. It's why in the Christian tradition we are so faithful to the idea of tithing, right? Giving money to the church as an act of gratitude for the life we have, recognizing that life, 100% of it, was given by God. Verse 12. From then on, Pilate tried to release Jesus, but the Jews cried out, "If you release the man, you are no friend of the emperors." Again, playing on the idolatry that Pilate holds. Everyone who claims to be a king sets himself against the emperor. When Pilate heard these words, he brought Jesus outside and sat him on the stone pavement, or in Hebrew, Gabbatha. Now, we see this all through the Gospel of John, how the author continuously explains things, that the Messiah, or Christ, means the Messiah, or what are other examples? Where he says, this word means this word. And he does that because the author is writing to a community of people in Alexandria, Egypt, after the fall of the temple in Jerusalem in 70 AD, before the Jewish uprising in North Africa and Egypt was put down by the Romans in 115 AD. He's writing to the community because a whole host of folks migrated from Jerusalem and Israel and Galilee down to North Africa after the temple in 70 AD had been destroyed. Lazarus, I believe, was writing this letter to those people from the island of Cyprus, where he was the bishop in Larnaca for the entire island. And so he's writing to this community that's made up of Samaritans and Pharisees and Jews in Egypt and Platonists, all of these folks. And so he knows that there's some words here that they don't know. And so he occasionally will say, this means this or this means that. So just a little background for you. Verse 13. So when Pilate heard these words, he brought Jesus outside, and he sat on the judgment seat at the place called the stone pavement, or in Hebrew, Gabbatha. Now it was the day of preparation for Passover. It was about noon. Again, another example of the author being very particular about the details. This is when it was. And he said to the Jews, "Here's your king." And they cried, away with him, crucify him." Pilate asked them, "Shall I crucify your king?" Chief priests answered, "We have no king but the emperor." Then they handed him over to be crucified. So there they are, they're denying Jesus' humanity. They're denying that he is a child of God. They are denying that he is the Messiah, which is the easier part to understand. And they are sentencing him to death through the power and the insecurity of the prelate, Pilate. And so here's my question to you. Has there ever been a time in your life when you felt the authority over you that you had to acquiesce to, even though you knew it wasn't the right thing to do? That's what Pilate did. That's what the Jews did, and they put Pilate in a position to do that himself. It was a collaborative event, no question about it. They put human power over the divine hopes of God. We all do that occasionally, and it's important to remember when. I pray for you, I miss you, I love you. Peace upon your soul.